But we're going to move on to another legend, and I guess we started the show off with two sad topics, but we're going to just, get right into it because this is even a bigger one. I know personally for me, the passing of Kobe Bryant, and we're just a year from that now, was big, and it was hard to take. And I know I'm still suffering as a fan, as a coach, as a human being. Kobe was big. I mean, it's Kobe. What can you say?
Right. I'm a Celtics fan. I never liked Kobe Bryant when he was a player. I never liked watching him. I thought he was, he took a ton of shots because people call him a little bit of a selfish player, but he's the top 10 player of all time. So, it's okay for him to take a lot of shots. But I think the thing that, you got to appreciate, first of all, he was a brilliant basketball player. No matter if you don't like his style or not, the way that he played was unbelievable. He mimicked everything after Michael Jordan, and he got pretty close to getting to Michael Jordan. He wasn't quite there, but unbelievable player. And then, I think when you look at the Lakers back then, a lot of people were either on Shaq's side or Kobe's side. I was a Shaq fan first. I kind of stuck with Shaq. And the Celtics, being a Celtics fan, the fact that he was a Laker kind of stung at me a little bit. But then when you see what he did as soon as he retired, he was such an intense player. And we kept hearing from people who really knew him that said once he stopped playing in the NBA and that intensity, he could kind of let his guard down a little bit. He started coaching his daughter, and it just seemed like that's when people started to really understand what kind of guy Kobe was. And I think it's the most unfortunate part that everybody talked about when this happened just over a year ago was that what was going to happen next with Kobe, with what he was going to do coaching, with what he was going to do. I mean, if he was around for what happened over the summer, he would have done some amazing things for social justice because of how smart he is and some of the endeavors that he was already engaged in. I think what would have happened next for Kobe would have been maybe just as, if not more impressive as his playing career.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I want to go back to even that, like you said, that comment about this summer, and with everything that was going on with obviously the racial injustice stuff. I had tweeted out that, man, are we missing Kobe right now? This is the time where we're really missing him because he really would have been at the forefront of leading that. And I would have loved to have heard what he had to say. And I think it would have been a great leader in that. But yeah, I mean, it's just really a sad situation. Obviously, a lot of people passed away in that helicopter crash, and they're still investigating the actual cause of it.
Right.
But I mean, Kobe was the biggest one, obviously, that most people knew and that affected the majority of the public. But I mean, what a player. I mean, in my opinion, he's number 2 all time. And that's, a great topic that I know we can get into later on in the show. But I'd have to go Jordan number 1 and Kobe number 2. And like you said, he mirrored his game after Jordan and came very close. Some people could obviously say that it would be 1 and 1A. And I wouldn't even argue with that because I think Kobe affected the game that much. You've seen it just on the individual aspects of dropping 81 points in a game. And then again, on his final game, dropping 61 when, coming back from an Achilles injury and people are saying he's done, he's too old. And he comes out and he's still the Mamba that everybody knows and drops 61 points to end his career. I mean, and I think he was obviously the first real true player, him and Kevin Garnett, that really broke in the high school players into the NBA. So they really changed the guard. I mean, I think they are the real kings of the NBA, especially when it comes to that. Like I said, I mean, he was 18 when he played his first NBA game and scored his first NBA points, which is pretty amazing. But then, I mean, you look at all the things he did with Shaq, but then look at the 2 championships that he won without Shaq, I think are more defining for his career, winning them with Pau Gasol. I mean, Pau Gasol, Shaq, and I'm not saying Pau Gasol is a bad player. He's actually great, but Shaq is obviously a top 50 player of all time, probably a top 20 player of all time.
Definitely.
So it's one of those things where, I mean, winning 2 championships post-Shaq really showed how great Kobe was. And I think he's going to be missed for all time. For all time, people are still going to be talking about him, and he's still affecting the culture today, especially with his shoe line and just the way the Mamba mentality lives on. And and people want to talk about him. I know one of the young players on the Memphis Grizzlies, John Morant, said he's going to be wearing a different pair of Kobe's all season long to honor Kobe. So I just think it's something like that you're just always going to see. It seems like every day, even in the coaching world, I see one of his speeches, because he was big in that post his playing career as being a motivational speaker to athletes and teams. One of the speeches that I would recommend people to go watch is the speech that he gave to the Alabama football team. Was really good. So yeah, I think you hit it right with, he was really starting to define his career more and define himself more as a person post basketball, which I was really enjoying to see him blossoming more as a father. And I honestly think he was going to be an NBA coach within a few years down the line. I think he was working his way towards that and getting back on the sideline. So yeah, it's, sad to see Kobe go. And I still think even today, even a year later, we were talking earlier before we got on the show, how it's still a shock that he's gone, and it still affects us to this day. And I think this is going to be one that's going to hurt for a long time.
Yeah, and whenever you talk about a professional athlete who's, he was just a couple of years out from retiring, so he was still a young guy, early 40s, and you still think of those guys as invincible. They're tremendous athletes that take care of their body. Kobe was notorious for being in great shape every year. You see what kind of things they do on the court. You mentioned him coming back from the Achilles injury. They just seem superhuman. And then when something like that, an accident like that happens, you kind of are brought down to earth and say, these people are human beings too. And when, Kobe passed away in that accident, obviously his daughter, Gigi, was in the helicopter as well, and a few other friends and family, and the pilot of the helicopter died as well. And it's just like, there's human beings behind when these things happen. We talk about him as an athlete, but there's human beings whose lives were lost there as well. So it's just the whole thing is still shocking, like you said, just over a year ago. And it's just amazing. It seems like yesterday that it happened. It wasn't that long ago, it seems like, but over a year. It's just amazing that how much time has passed since it happened.